Good afternoon, everyone. And in this post-parendial time, I'll try my level best to keep you awake. And to help me, I have eminent panel as just updated to you by my colleague. So greetings from Tata Memorial Center, the place where I got trained and then further on kept working to uplift the standards of sarcoma care, not just nationally, but globally as well. And I would definitely like to thank the entire organizing team and especially my friends in Pune, because it really seems like I'm living 15 to 20 years back when we were in Tata Memorial Hospital, and we all used to have some great fun and used to do great work with great effort and enjoyment. So next 40 minutes or so, we're going to discuss a very interesting case of a bone tumor, which is actually a real case. It is not a hypothetical case, and how it went on and how we managed. And Dr. Parekh and Dr. Sachin has given me a very unique scenario to tackle, and my friends here, I'm sure, will give you a lot of insight into the real-time scenario, how we manage these patients. As updated already, I have very experienced colleagues in 3 tumor boards who will handle and try to answer the same treatment modality at 3 phases of this disease evolution in 3 different scenarios, as you have been hearing since morning as well. So 11-year-old boy had a history of pain in his thigh since 3 months. And after a month or so, the swelling started paining as well. There was no history of fever and trauma. I'm going to complete my case so that we have a lot of time for discussion, and we don't go into the diagnosis, as it will be pretty obvious here. So we evaluated him with the help of our standard radiological imaging in the form of an X-ray in 2 perpendicular planes, screening the entire bone, which showed a lesion which was in the diaphysis of, do I have a pointer? Yeah. So we have the lesion in the diaphysis of the femur. So you can see a lesion which is looking like a mixed lesion intramedullary. But if you look outside, you have a soft tissue component with partial ossification, and the same findings are seen on the lateral X-ray as well. Sorry. Looking at MRI, sorry, this is a video, which, yeah. So these are the images at these cross sections. You can see the axial T2 weighted images, where you can see the neurovascular bundle, the disease, which is starting from the medulla. And so we can have one more look at the disease, especially for the surgeons, because local planning is important in this case, and it has its own impact on patient outcomes. So that was the disease and relationship of neurovascular bundle. These are representative axial section images where you can see the disease and the extraosseous soft tissue component. Neurovascular bundle is pretty close here. And you have sciatic nerve here, which is almost dividing into 2 components. As for every case, we discussed the patient in our MDT, planned for biopsy, which came out at high-grade osteosarcoma, staged the patient with bone scan and non-contrast CT thorax, and he was non-metastatic. We further discussed the plan after imaging, and as the standard of care for any osteosarcoma, this patient was put on neoadjuvant chemotherapy. We practiced non-methotrexate-based IAP regime, followed by surgery, and obviously the adjuvant chemotherapy will also come up. Every patient is evaluated post-NACT for the response to the disease, and if there is any increase in the disease which is noted, and final surgical planning is based upon both the imaging pre and post-NACT. This is the MRI, which is post NACT. And you will see here that there's marked ossification in the extraosseous mass, and there's slight reduction as well. So this was a good response to chemotherapy. These are axial images showing the same. Patient was brought back again into MDT to discuss various surgical options, and I'm sure we will have that discussion a bit later, but I will tell you what we did. We did an intercalary resection, maybe debatable for few, and sterilized the tumor bone using liquid nitrogen, that is the cryotherapy, and reimplanted back. And I ordered a special customized plate for this patient to preserve the distal physeal growth. These are a few intraoperative pictures which are more interest to surgeons. This is the tumor bone, which was sterilized after removing the soft tissue. It was reimplanted back with this patient-specific implant. These are post-operative X-rays. So that's how the first stage of the treatment went, and we evaluated the patient and we executed our treatment. And obviously, this patient also had adjuvant chemotherapy. The necrosis was about 90%, and he went on to have the same chemotherapy and completed all 8 cycles. Things were going fine. We follow our patients every 5 to 6 months. At second follow-up, at a disease-free interval of 12 months, when we were evaluating him, we found that he had pulmonary metastasis, which were all 3 lesions were peripheral, and maximum size was about 1.5 centimeters, and all were less than that. Patient was again brought into multidisciplinary management, and we discussed the case with our medical oncologist and thoracic surgeons. And we debated various questions like whether it is resectable or not, whether we should do an open surgery or we should use VATS, and whether this patient should be subjected to another toxic second-line chemotherapy for this disease. MDT decided, and we went ahead with metastectomy. Histopathology was metastatic osteosarcoma, and we did not give any further chemotherapy at this stage. Patient again did pretty well. For 2 years from this time, and post 2 years from the metastectomy, not from the completion of the index treatment, so that's about now 3 years now, patient had second relapse, and this time patient had relapse at 2 sites, local as well as distant. Though the disease burden was small, he had a solitary pulmonary lesion, which was about 3 centimeters in size, and a subcutaneous soft tissue local recurrence, which is about 4 centimeters in size. Again, discussed in MDT, and options were thought of about metastectomy and whether local recurrence can be excised without any plastic surgery, or will it require, because it was a superficial lesion, and now whether at this stage this patient require any salvage chemotherapy or not. Sorry. So we went ahead with the treatment. We again did a VATS metastectomy. It was a peripheral lesion. We excised the local recurrence, and it did not require a free flap, but there was a skin defect, and we had to do hamstring muscle mobilization and split thickness skin graft onto it. And at this point of time, MDT took a decision of administering a second-line chemotherapy to this patient, which was methotrexate paste. So that is the entire history and the entire case scenario of this patient. Now, I have my able colleagues in tumor board A, B, and C. So tumor board A, I will request you to highlight whatever pertaining points you want to highlight in this case, whether you agree or you don't agree. In addition to that, I would also request you that please let us know whether your approach will change or remain the same. And if you change, then what will be your approach and the reasons for it? If this patient is not affording and can only be treated under various government schemes where limited funds are available. I will request my colleagues in tumor board B to decide the management if this patient initially when he presented had low GFR and patient had single kidney and some hearing loss. So how your management will change, whether systemically or locally. And tumor board C, where we need to address the social issues. I have put a scenario where this kid, where the parents died in COVID pandemic, and he's being taken care by distant relatives who are not extremely keen to do the best possible for him. Will that change your management, or how your counseling will change? So I'll end here, and maybe we can start some discussion from maybe 90%. Good response. Good response. Okay.
I think we'll go in the same way.
If you want maybe a couple of minutes for discussion, we can have that. In the meantime, I can chat with Dr. Agarwal and keep you entertained. Dr. Manish Agarwal, as all of us know, a very eminent personality in musculoskeletal oncology, and I'm privileged that I worked under him and with him since now last almost 14 years. So, Dr. Agarwal, how things have been changing in osteosarcoma management in past decade or so globally?
Well, one thing which has changed is that we now are able to understand or evaluate the response to chemotherapy even before we go down to surgery. In that way, you are able to customize your margins. So the 3 centimeters, which was the golden rule at one time, today can be breached. One is able to go as close as a few millimeters if we have a recent scan and you know that the patient has had a good response to chemotherapy. Like in this case, now you want to save the growth plate. So you cannot afford a 3 centimeter margin. Your margin is going to be a centimeter or something like that. So that is one thing which has changed. The second thing is that you've got a few.
So first point which Dr. Agarwal highlighted is the conventional methods of assessing the margins are changing now. Imaging is getting better and better. We can do precise surgeries, so we can be closer in select patients. And obviously that has to be clubbed with the response of neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Yes, sir.
The second, I think very clearly we now know that the whole world is divided between high-dose methotrexate based regimens and non-methotrexate based regimens.
I think we will leave that question for
Yes.
For the groups to talk about, and we'll do that.
No, so what is not yet settled is which is better.
Yeah. Yes, I
We're
completely
still
agree.
waiting for some concrete evidence to tell us what is better.
Yeah. So I will ask you another question to fill up some more time. And in general, that stands for everyone in day-to-day practice. A lot of people, whether surgeons or medical oncologists or pathologists, they have this concept of doing an open biopsy, and a lot of people are keen to do open biopsy. Now, you are practicing exclusive musculoskeletal oncology for about 21 years, 22 years now almost. So what has been your experience in Indian scenario and globally as well, just pertaining to whether open biopsy or needle biopsy should be done or not?
In fact, actually here there is a lot of agreement that a needle biopsy is as good, if not actually better than an open biopsy. In fact, there have been a few recent papers which have shown that the needle biopsy is actually superior to an open biopsy because you can get samples from different parts of the tumor without any invasion, without any contamination. The second thing is that it's a huge advantage for the limb salvage team because the amount of resected area to be removed is much smaller with a needle biopsy. In fact, there are times when you can even ignore the needle biopsy scar, provided that there has not been too much of contamination at the time of surgery. So all this is beneficial from the patient's point of view.
So no debate, we
on
must
that.
go for needle biopsy.
But there are still a lot of very reputed centers which do open biopsies. And the reason for them doing open biopsies is because they collect tissue in their tissue bank for their research studies, for the molecular tests, or the other research work. So it's not that they don't like the needle biopsy. It's not that the needle biopsy is not effective, but it's because they need that tissue for
research. Okay. So one last question before we go into the boards. there have been debate again that what should be the modality of choice for staging this patient, whether we should do a non-contrast enhanced CT scan and a bone scan, or today is the time where PET scan can completely replace these two modalities. I would like you to address this question looking at the ideal scenario and also a cost constrained scenario as well.
Yeah, so I think in an ideal world, everybody would get a PET CT scan, because we have no doubt that it's not just staging of the disease at the time of starting the chemotherapy or getting the diagnosis. It is about even assessing the response. And if you're going to offer customized treatment, particularly if you're going to do something like recycling the tumor bone like you did with liquid nitrogen, your assessment of response even post-op is not as accurate as it would have been if the whole specimen would have been sent. So if I had a PET CT scan prior to starting chemotherapy and a PET CT scan after the chemotherapy before surgery, at least I have a very good idea whether the patient responded to my primary line of chemotherapy. Now, like in this case, when the patient relapsed and I'm debating whether I want to give them a second line chemotherapy or not, if the patient has responded to your first line chemotherapy, there is much better chance that he will respond to the other drugs he's not been exposed to. Whereas if he was resistant to your frontline chemotherapy drugs, then those chances fall actually. So that may help you decide. So I would say that you must do a PET CT for every patient where they can afford it on that. Now, the reason why it has not become a part of standard guidelines is because this is a rare disease. It takes a long time for you to get robust data.
Generate the data.
And insurance companies are not going to accept the guidelines unless there is robust data. So that's the main reason why it's still not standard for osteosarcoma, but I think in a few years it will be.
Sure. So if you have a PET scan facility like Dr. Panchwag is here, and he's a dear colleague, and we always keep debating. Dinanath Mangeshkar, I think the cost of doing a CT scan and a bone scan, if you compare it with PET, there's hardly any difference. So for his patients, it's very easy. This is a one-stop shop where patient goes, does a PET scan with breath hold CT, and it's done. You don't need double appointments, and it's much more easier. So you just need to look at your scenario, availability, cost effectiveness. Both modalities are acceptable, and definitely non-contrast and CT scan and bone scan give us adequate staging. It's not that we are adding a lot, but yes, as Dr. Agarwal said, response evaluation is coming up in big way, and maybe in years to come, it will become better.
There's one thing, Ashish, I want to add. So when people order a PET CT, it is important that it's not just PET CT, which is enough. You have to combine it with a breath hold CT thorax.
Okay.
And sometimes that is counted as extra cost. So when you order the PET CT scan, if you have not done a breath hold CT thorax, your staging is incomplete.
Great.
You have to have that.
Thank you, sir. So now I'll go to tumor board A, and please feel free to share your opinions on how the patient was treated, and you need to add your comments on how will you treat if you have constrained resources, please.
Would have gone almost the same way you treated this patient. Maybe some change in a chemo regime, which because I think IAP will not be available in government schemes, and for metastatectomy, maybe VATS is not possible under scheme, so we have to go for an open approach.
Okay, so
some help of NGOs, maybe for liquid nitrogen and all those plates for the surgery.
okay, correct. So we have 5 minutes for you. So we'll just play a rapid fire. So answer brief, and I can ask you more questions. So what do you think, if it's cost constrained, what can be the optimum chemotherapy for non-metastatic osteosarcoma? If you're saying that IAP may not be affordable, or the cost is high, or it may not be available in the schemes.
So we usually give cisplatin adriamycin in
Doublet.
scheme. Yeah.
And yes, we have data from AIMS, and I'm not sure if Samir is around, but he has shown that, yeah, Samir is there, yes. You want to update on the data from the AIMS on the doublet?
Sir, I'm practicing triplets only.
No, but there is a paper from AIMS, that's why.
Sir, it was 3-4 years back, and I think the outcomes were not great. I mean, it was 25 to 30%. So everyone is now giving triplet.
Okay.
Majority of times.
Okay. Anybody has experience with doublet?
So I think earlier days we used to do doublet and I mean, you can always do doublet and then if you have poor necrosis, you can add the third drug later. So at least you can identify, you don't have to give triplet to everybody. It may be a good strategy in resource constrained situation.
I think that is what the Bakshi's paper was there, where he has added a third drug in poor responders, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes.
Correct. So anyways, may I just ask you, what do you think usually will be the cost difference between a doublet and triplet, adding ifosfamide for the entire maybe 6 cycles or 8 cycles, which you are thinking?
It is available in all government scheme. With ifosfamide also, we can give under scheme.
Yeah, so I just want to update everyone that we just reviewed the NCG guidelines and the sort of which are being taken by various government schemes as well. So IIP definitely will be funded by all government schemes. I'm not sure about any particular state, but I think all central government schemes will have option of using all 3 drugs. Okay, you also talked about cryotherapy. So I think I'll just add a point here. Yogesh, you want to add a point, the cost effectiveness of using a cryotherapy?
I don't think there's much of a difference. I wouldn't worry about that. I only worried about the customization of the plate.
Correct.
Because that
So-
is going to be a costlier affair.
Great. So let me continue with you. If you do not have that option, what alternatives you have?
The only other alternative is to sacrifice the distal physeal growth plate, because I wouldn't get a good purchase in the distal segment, even though I'll be left with only about a centimeter about a growth plate if I have to have decent margins distally.
How
So
old is the
I-
child?
Yeah,
How
He's
old
12.
is the child?
He's 12.
12-year-old, no?
12,
12.
yeah.
And pre-pubertal?
prepubertal, open physis.
So that's going to add up to a definite limb length discrepancy at a later date, provided turns out to be a survivor. But then I'll think of a limb lengthening procedure at a later date if we come to that. But in a resource constraint setting, that would be my option, to sacrifice the distal growth plate, but not to compromise on the margins.
Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that that's not the end of the day. Even if we have to do that, even if we have to span through the physis, we can still do intercalary, span the physis, look at the limb length discrepancy, and we have solutions at a later stage when patient is a survivor, and then we can do that. Great. Thank you so much for your contribution, and I think we had good discussion. Let me move on to tumor board B. So same patient, affordability is not an issue. We have all resources available, but this is the scenario, Ashish. Yeah.
So it's a difficult scenario because on one hand, you have a young boy who have a very high chance of relapse if you don't give systemic therapy. And on the other hand, if you hit them hard with cisplatin or even ifosfamide, even methotrexate, you can lose the kidney and you can become dialysis dependent. So we'll probably have to tread carefully here. And one of the things what I can do is, even though platinum remains an important component, so and we know the injury can be cumulative and dose dependent. So so I can split the 6 cycles. Maybe the first 2 cycles only cisplatin. That too, I would probably split the dose as day 1, day 8. Instead of giving 75 and higher on day 1, I can give 40 on day 1 and 40 on day 8. And with close monitoring, of course, with audiograms and GFR, and then maybe the 4 cycles could be carboplatin and not cisplatin.
Great.
So
And do you agree? You don't agree? Both the boards? Any further opinions? Yes.
Sir, you said single kidney is there and low GFR. So even other kidneys not functioning?
It is functioning, but it is, I think it's good enough to start chemotherapy. It's not gone that bad. So I think I'm just breaking the trend and going out of tumor boards. We have Dr. Govind Babu here, and sir has great experience of treating sarcomas. Sir, this is a difficult scenario, and I'm sure in your practice you would have seen many patients like this. So how do you modulate such osteosarcoma treatment for these patients?
Yeah, so, the drugs as such are not expensive, but the supportive care is the most important thing for these patients. So I think that's important. All the government schemes covers all these, including the growth factors. We have also used methotrexate as a single agent earlier.
But sir, particularly about the scene B, where we have single
yeah,
kidney.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we tackle this situation?
See, even if it is a single kidney, the GFR is low, hearing loss, you said. So there, I would not use cisplatinum. Again, hearing loss, I would like to quantify and see what sort of hearing loss there is, and accordingly decide on the cisplatinum. or not.
Okay, sir. In this scenario, will you err towards sort of looking at methotrexate more rather than ifosfamide or
Yeah,
just-
that's right. I would look at methotrexate more as a single agent, high dose methotrexate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Anything else you want to add in terms of surgical management, evaluation, please?
Hello. We can actually consider extracorporeal irradiation also for this patient as
Very
a
good point.
replacement for liquid nitrogen therapy, that cryotherapy that you have used.
Yeah.
It's a fairly economically cheap thing. It can be done with a
Perfect,
very
perfect.
simple coordination between the
Anything-
surgeon and.
Anything else? Let's, for example, the bone quality is not very good. Can you do anything? Michelle, yeah.
So actually with the compromise in the neoadjuvant chemotherapy because of the systemic problem, we would like to reassess after the NACT and then take a call on local planning. Consider he has a single kidney, low GFR. We might not be able to tackle a recurrence later on with any more systemic therapy. So we might have to change the local plan, not only between ECRT or cryo, we might have to even contemplate an amputation.
If
for
patient
one
is
shot.
not responding, fine. If you don't get adequate margin and if you feel that your margins are not fine, and obviously the disease removal is the prime, and if the patient is not responding, very good point. But surgically, if your bone quality is not good, you can't do cryo. And my friend also said about ECRT. Any other options do you have?
So now we know that he has no economical issue. We can go for an intercalary prosthesis, maybe get it customized. And say he's between, affording and unaffording. I think a little compromise, but still effective. We can do a nail cement spacer and, put a nail or a plate, like however we need to support it. And then later on take a call.
Great. So we had this surgical discussion also that, not just the using the tumor sterilized bone, ECRT, we have done enough. And right from the time when Dr. Agrawal was there in TMH, we started in 2006. In TMH itself, we have now more than 175 cases of ECRT, but off late since past about 2.5, 3 years, we have moved on to doing cryo because the Japanese have shown that the union rates are better than ECRT. And obviously, if the bone quality is not good, you need a robust bone there. Then we can do the options, which are non-biological options, which Michelle alluded about. And it talks about doing a prosthesis, which can be customized prosthesis. Though we do not have a lot of facilities in India at present, they are evolving. We need to import them. They cost pretty high, but we have cost-effective nail cement spacers as well, which can be used in tumor board A scenario. So that is one discussion. Okay, now tumor board C. I know it's a bit difficult scenario, but we had to address the social issues as well. So that's the scenario, and I would like you to.
Yeah, so I think the basic approach should not change. The basic chemotherapy approach on an NACT would be the same, because what would bother the distant relatives is the second relapse, and they will have to again come for the second relapse. And so preventing a relapse is the most important. And IAP chemotherapy is a very simple, cost-effective chemotherapy that can be given. So from my point, no change in the NACT from my side. I think sir can tell us for the surgery point of view.
Yogesh, in addition to surgery, whatever you allude, can you also add a point on counseling and maybe just helping this patient in more than just medical ways?
Yeah, obviously, one important thing that we need to counsel all these patients is stress on the fact that amputation is not going to really take care of the metastatic status if they have to occur at a later date. So limb salvage would not compromise on the overall survival is the first issue that we need to stress, though that will remain one of the options lower down on the line. In this particular case, looking at the chemotherapy response, definitely, and limb salvage surgery is one of the options. What to do in the limb salvage could be discussed with the family. I would use cryo only if I'm able to achieve, I'm going to do only one osteotomy. That saves me one osteotomy instead of a double. And that's the situation I'm looking for when I go and use a cryo therapy. Otherwise, I'm happy doing an ECRT. Another thing that I could have done is maybe add up a fibula, a vascularized fibula, that would give biological reconstruction onto the radiated or cryo treated bone. And that would have given me a much longer lasting definitive
Reconstruction.
fixation.
Yeah.
So that is something else. Obviously, depending on whether the family is affording or not, that will decide whether I can customize a plate for him so that I can save the distal physis. Preferably, I would do the same thing that you have done. Otherwise, as I just discussed, I would sacrifice the distal physis and then think about a contralateral epiphysiodesis to reduce the limb length discrepancy, or then think about limb length lengthening options at a later date. If 3 years, 4 years down the line, 5 years down the line, once he attains or he's near skeletal maturity. Apart from that, I don't really think the social issues probably can be dealt with very effectively at multiple centers. So counseling the distant relatives that this particular patient can achieve a cure and not giving up on him is going to be the key message.
Okay, let me go to Samir and let me ask Samir. Samir, patient not completing the treatment or not taking the treatment. You work in a government institution where you would have seen such scenarios. How do you tackle such scenarios? And what are the means by which you can help them financially as well? Do you know of some ways which all of us can learn from it?
Sir, actually, we have all 3 chemotherapy drugs almost free of cost in AIIMS. Ifosfamide, doxorubicin, platinum. And regarding methotrexate levels, then they have to pay. Otherwise, everything is free. But yeah, Ayushman Bharat is coming up. And I think for pediatrics, there are a lot of NGOs which provide free fund, at least for non-metastatic patients. So these are the options. Regarding loss to follow-up, so nowadays it has somehow, this thing has become very less. But in case a patient cannot take prolonged 8 cycles, we can cut down to 6 cycles. Or we can, like we usually refer to their native place. If patient has come from Bihar, then now all the medical colleges have a medical oncologist. So this can be taken care of, sir, now.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think the time is now that we move on. I had put some audience questions and I'll just read it out for you. We don't have time for that. And if you are in tumor board A, what will be your choice of therapy? So I had put the doublet, IAP, MAP, Gemdoxy. So all of us know that doublet is there, but if possible, we should give a triplet. If you're in tumor board B, what will be your choice of chemotherapy? We all know. And I think Sir also told about that in pediatric age group, methotrexate is pretty well tolerated. And if there's no cost constraints, he would like to have that as first choice. But there are other options available which are also good. If you're in tumor board A, what will be a choice of surgical reconstruction? So we discussed that. It's not that every patient requires amputation. There are cost-effective management also available. We can add vascularized fibula, plating. You can have nail cement spacers, and these are the options available. If you're in tumor board C, what will be your choice of surgical reconstruction? Again, it will depend upon what kind of support is available. And I was trying to ask a question, and because I was trying to get the information, there is a lot of support available across the country, whether it's ICS, CCF fund, whether it is the local NGOs. We just need to pick up phone and try to make things a bit better for this patient. Additionally, we need to counsel the relatives as well, that they should not feel that this patient is burden on them. We can share the burden and we can give the same best possible management for this kid also. If you're in tumor board A, what will be the choice of chemotherapy in second relapse? That will depend upon what sort of agents you have used in the first scenario. And obviously, if you use IAP, you would like to have methotrexate-based regimes. And if you have used methotrexate-based regime, then you would like to add IFOS, and Gemdox is also a good option in some patients who can't tolerate that. So I think I'll end here, and I'll request Dr. Agrawal to give his final comments, which can be taken as take-home message. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question, sir. Can I ask?
Yes, Samir.
So recently we got a patient who had liquid nitrogen done like outside. And since we cannot assess margin or we cannot assess percentage necrosis. So if it is done in a center where they are not doing it very routinely, they are doing twice or thrice in a year, but there are chances that it might fail in a malignant osteosarcoma, like high-grade osteosarcoma.
So Samir, the answer is that obviously we would also always request that you should do a procedure which you are comfortable with and which you are doing it pretty regularly. And I think all the surgeons who has been practicing either ECRT or cryo, they are very well versed with the techniques and they take special care that because margin assessment will not be done, they go a bit more wider always. Intraoperatively, if there's doubt, they also send the frozen sections. But if it's osteosarcoma, if you are close and if you are focally positive, then you know that it's a very bad news for the patient because it's radio resistance. In addition to that, tumor necrosis assessment can be done, as Dr. Agarwal said earlier, with the help of the imaging which you do post NACT, and that can give you a rough idea, but not correctly. Dr. Agarwal.
I'm not still clear whether we should use 6 cycles or 9 cycles in osteosarcoma. I don't think anybody in the world is clear about it. People who have not responded, the chemotherapists tend to give 9 cycles instead of 6, and people who have responded may do well, even probably if you give 4 cycles of chemotherapy. We don't know the real answers. But there is clearly data that the 3-drug treatment or the triplet is much better than the doublet, especially first time around, maybe not the second time when you have a relapse. The second thing is that in the surgical options, I think cost should not figure. We are trying very hard to make this technology of 3D printed plates become so affordable that anybody can afford it. We now have a 3D printer at IIT Bombay, and in the next 2 or 3 months, we should be able to give 3D printed plates to anybody who wants it at a cost which is very affordable. The third thing is that there is one more option which has not been considered here, which is the Canadell's method, where you can do an epiphyseal distraction and still have a 70% chance of saving the growth from the growth plate. And there you don't require a customized plate, you fix the distal part with K-wire, so that doesn't add to the cost. So these are the 3 things that I want to say. And you asked me one question of what else has changed. I think instead of doing open thoracotomies, we are doing more of VATS. And we are more comfortable doing resections for osteosarcoma nodules, because we know that even with multiple surgeries, when there are few nodules and those which have come over a longer period of time, these patients still stand a chance of cure. So we should not give up on them.
Thank you so much. And just to update you on this patient, now the patient is 16 months post second relapse. It is doing fine, and we hope that he continues to do fine. Thank you so much for your attention.